So, y'all, I was so nervous. I had graduated from college, turned my email into an air cannon for resumes, and I was hearing nothing. It was the turn of the millennium. We had celebrated that. We had gotten our hangovers, gotten over them. Y2K had happened, had fizzled. And now it was just grim January silence. And I started to worry, is my BA in English with a minor in art history worth nothing? Am I going to have to move back in with my parents, go back to Baton Rouge, Louisiana? I had not lived in Baton Rouge since I was 14. And so it was right about then that George called. George was the CEO and owner of a financialservices.com, and he needed someone to write financial advice columns for him starting immediately. I knew absolutely nothing about financial advice, but I wanted to be a writer, and so I figured, well, sure, I can look up financial advice. That's fine, great, awesome. George lived in Nashville, Tennessee, and I lived in Atlanta, Georgia at the time, and there was an ice storm. Right on. There was an ice storm coming in between us, but George said that he needed someone to start writing for him immediately, so immediately that I had to come and interview with him by 8:30 a.m. the next morning, which happened to be a Saturday. And if I could not do that, then he would have to consider other candidates. Now, as I said, I am from Louisiana. There was no way I was going to be able to drive through an ice storm, but my boyfriend at the time was willing. So we loaded everything in the car, drove over every slippery turn in the Smokies, and we got there by 8:30 a.m. the next morning. His house turned out to be kind of a long, low, Japanese-style affair at the top of a mountain with a frozen koi pond in the middle. And he already had his two assistants working for him. There was the blonde one in the front to take my paperwork, and then there was a brunette one to take me back to George. George turned out to be kind of a short man. He was the kind of man who wears a white turtleneck beneath his tailored Italian suit. And he was the first man I had ever shaken hands with who clearly studied the art of shaking hands, if you know what I mean. Like he just goes in there and grabs just a little bit hard, you know? And so he asked some questions about my BA and my background, but it was clear that the interview had really been willing to drive all night through an ice storm, and I had done that, and so he offered me the job. But it just seemed prudent to say something like, oh, I think, I'd like to think about that, or I think I better ask my boyfriend. He was still just 2 rooms away with the blonde. And, but that just seemed to make George a little irate. And so he said, what do I have to do to make you take the job right here, right now? Well, I didn't know. It was an interview question I hadn't prepared for. So George, he took out his big landline phone and put it down between us and had me dial my parents and told them, you've raised a fine daughter, which just kind of confused them at that hour of the morning. And then when that didn't work, he leaned way back in his chair and gestured out the plate glass window at the snow-capped mountains around us and said, Hannah, I'm gonna have you so rich, you're gonna be pissing in silk panties. It was a strange turn of phrase. I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing. But it was the height of the dot-com boom, and there did seem to be a lot of people getting rich without doing a whole lot of anything. And even though getting stupid rich had never been like a huge goal of mine, all of a sudden sitting there, I thought, well, why the hell not me? I took the job, I moved to Nashville, and after a couple of months, my colleagues and I did notice that other .coms were running into some financial troubles, but we were pretty sure that our .com was doing okay, and we knew that in a couple ways. One was that George continued to fly in every week a film crew from LA to document our meteoric rise to success. Another way was that we hadn't even released the real name of the company. We were going by a code name. Our code name was Project W for Project Wealth. But we were sure that once we released the real name of the company, Wealthport, the riches would just rain down on us. The URL alone had to be worth millions. But even so, after a couple more months, we noticed that George, the man with the firm handshake, he seemed to be losing his grip a little. He was yelling at people and running from meeting to meeting. The videographer was running after him, trailing his cords, until finally he said, "You know what we need? We need to get to know each other better as people. Why don't you come out to the farm, do some skeet shooting, and we'll just drink some beers." He and his wife had once been trainers of the U.S. Olympic skeet shooting team. So we went out there, but instead of calming him down, the skeet shooting seemed to ignite this competitive streak in George. If his company was going to go down in flames, then by God, we were going to shoot the hell out of some clay pigeons on the way down. So I had never fired a gun before this point, but I had gone to camp, and I had done some archery, and I had been okay at it, so I was feeling pretty confident when it came time to take my turn. I picked up the gun, and they fired off a clay pigeon. The recoil almost knocked me over. And there was George screaming in my ear, "Widen your stance, tighten your grip." Well, oh, okay, all right, okay, all right. It hurt so bad. And then there was George screaming in my ear again. And all of a sudden, I realized that I didn't care about skeet shooting. And I really didn't care about George either. And I definitely did not give a damn about pissing in silk panties. I did not know what that meant. And I didn't think George knew what it meant either. It had just been something to tell a naive 21-year-old who wanted to hit the jackpot on her first time out. It was time to pack my bags, lick my wounds, and head back to Atlanta to start again.